welcome everyone to the second session of the masterclass. It's called Understanding Data Recipe to Success. The first session, we kind of like touch on the wider picture. So we talk about macroeconomic factors, economic outlooks, market insights, and we had a presentation from the Data Lab about the different type of courses they have, but also like some case studies on how to use data externally, but also internally. So yeah, this session is going to be more focused at the business level. And it will provide you with some tips for you to understand what data do you have and how to make the most of it. So it's an interactive session. Please use the chat and keep your cameras on. As I said before, this session is going to be being recorded, so keep your cameras on if you can, and put your mic on mute unless you're speaking. And remember that there is a space for Q&A at the end. So yeah, and without further ado, let's start with the session. This is an overview of the support services that I already mentioned last session, but it's going to be there because I'm going to be sharing the slides with you so that we have some different links for the different offers the HIE Food and Drink TechHUB offers to you. Some of the links can lead you to like applying for one-to-one support or to like be up to date with the latest news on the different types of events that are going on, webinars, recorded webinars as well. And yeah, just like make sure you follow Highlands and Islands Enterprise on Twitter and like different social media. So you're gonna find all the resources there. The agenda for today, we've got a few speakers with us today. So we're going to start with a brief introduction to the topic and the speakers. I'm going to provide a bit of an overlook of environmental data, so navigating sources of this data at a high level. Showing you just how to use, how to find and use this information to make your business more sustainable. We'll dive into different external and internal resources for sustainability. So yeah, whether it doesn't matter the type of food and drink business you're running, whether you're a cafe owner looking to source coffee beans, or a restaurant or a cafe, bakery, looking to reduce its carbon footprint, or a brewery, distillery that wants to better manage the water resources. So this session will help you out to navigate those resources. The second session will be delivered by my colleague, Sarah Urbanova. She will embark us on a journey as she shares practical case studies from her previous role as an environmental coordinator for a major UK retail assets management company. Discover just how she will handle the responsibility of environmental data collection, analysis, and reporting at the operation levels. And perhaps you can gain some valuable insights and practical experience from these case studies. Then our last session is going to be run by Adam Turner and Salim, part of the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub, where they will be examining the different offers available towards SMEs across the UK, and how the team has supported organizations on their data journey, providing assistance via free sensors, data science support, to help companies leverage the data and turn that into meaningful insights. And then our final session will be a Q&A. So please get involved, ask all your questions, and engage and interact with us throughout the discussion. Again, introducing a little bit our speaker. So we already had Adam on our last session. So he's the head of external funding services for the Data Lab. And today he's wearing the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub hat. So that is a collaboration by a few or 13 UK partners with a mission to revolutionize the way SME manufacturers use their data for productivity and environmental progress. Then we're also joined by one of my colleagues from SAC Consulting, Sarah Urbanova. She is an environmental consultant. Her work mostly involves carbon quantification in carbon management planning for different types of clients, from farmers to SMEs and corporates as well. And then Luisa Riasco Skype. I am a food and drink consultant as well, SAC Consulting, specializing support food and drink businesses and promoting resilient community development, but with a particular focus on social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So I support different types of projects that apply different types of principles, particularly circular economy for resource efficiency, waste reduction, and innovative sustainable solutions. I also assist some of my colleagues and Sarah in the development of carbon footprints and life cycle assessments to inform decision making, again, for different types of different sizes of business, food and drink businesses mainly. This is a little recap of the homework we had from the last session, which was hypothetical case studies. This was drinks manufacturer in Scotland that wanted to implement a few different changes in their operations. So I'll just quickly go through what we had last time. So we had this scenario. So this company wanted to forecast demand for its drinks products in domestic and international markets. This was the result. So a decrease in demand for their product. So they according to this, they adjusted production levels and marketing strategies to maintain the market shares. So the question was, how would you approach this? How would you come from this scenario to this result? So some of the suggestions here, this is not like a definite answer, but it's something you could use. So, for example, the use of macroeconomic data, such as economic growth rates, exchange rates, and other factors to forecast sales models. Then we have had another case on consumer behavior. So the same company wanted to gain insights into consumer preferences and purchasing behavior to optimize its product portfolio. The result was that they discover a growing trend among young consumers towards low alcohol or alcohol-free alternatives. So how did they achieve this? One of the answers could be just doing a bit of market research, getting some insights, analyzing their consumer data from sales, transactions, surveys, social media interactions, that kind of allows them to identify different trends, different flavor profiles and packaging preferences. So they were able to tailor their product offerings and marketing messages to better resonate with their target audience. Another case study, so there were 4 of them. This is the third one. The company wanted to leverage seasonal trends to drive sales and marketing initiatives. The result, they observe a increase in demand for their products during the holiday season, particularly around Christmas, New Year's. And they created special promotions, special gift sets, and seasonal cocktail recipes as part of that approach they undertook. So what could the approach be? Is perhaps analyzing historical sales data or doing market research to identify seasonal demand patterns and consumer preferences, especially for this festive period. And lastly, our last case study was about energy and sustainability. So they wanted to reduce the carbon footprint and the energy caused by optimizing its production processes and facilities. The result was, identify opportunities to improve efficiency in their distillation and bottling processes. So one of the approach they could have taken was conducting an energy audit and implemented energy efficiency technologies and practices throughout these operations. For example, investing in higher efficiency equipment, condensers, boilers, implemented measures to optimize resources such as heating, cooling, or lighting systems in the facilities. And then as a result of all of these measures, they can reduce their energy consumption and carbon emissions, so leading to cost savings and environmental benefits. So this kind of smoothly leads us into our topic for today, and one of the topics of the session. It's about environmental metrics. So Today in this first session, I'll try to explore give an overview of the importance of environmental data in the food and drink business, and how is these particularly relevant for manufacturers as they're becoming increasingly important due to different environmental, social, and governance requirements. So we can start just by understanding what environmental metric is or environmental data is. So it's just it's information, as we said before, about the different uh, resource use in your company, in your business. So, for example, water use, energy use, or like sourcing ingredients, for example. So it's all the data that comes from your business, also from other business out there. And then for the Scottish food and drink businesses, this data can help business make better informed decisions, for example, reducing waste or optimizing resources, contributing to sustainable procurement practices. So yeah, in like overall, it's something that business should take into account for better sustainability performance. So these are some of the key hotspots in terms of environmental sustainability data for food and drink businesses. So for example, well, in terms of carbon footprint and energy efficiency, there's an increase in pressure on laying out or setting plans or goals to reach net zero emissions by a certain year. So including like all types of businesses, including SMEs in the food and drink sector, should take action to reduce their community and carbon footprint overall. So this includes moving to net zero logistic operations, could be increasing sustainably sourced products, sorry about that, and putting decarbonization at the core of the business decision making, for example. So the UK government has prepared already the decarbonization and energy efficiency roadmap for the food and drink sector particularly. So it outlines the potential for decarbonization and energy efficiency in the sector, including the analysis of all the different measures. So some of those links and resources are going to be shared at the end of the presentation. So you'll have a set of links that you can research and look into after this session if you are curious about it. We also have food waste here as one of the key hotspots in terms of environmental concerns. So according to a report by RAP, it's estimated that about 10.7 million tons of food waste was wasted across the UK in 2021. Of that, about 13% were from manufacturing processes. So that was approximately 3.9 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions, which yeah, it's considered a considerable amount. The UK is preparing for legislation to address this food waste. However, in the European Union, business are already reporting food waste with further regulations. Sorry, I'm just going to let this in. Yeah, so in the EU, it's anticipated that they will require a 10% reduction in manufacturing and processing food waste by 2030, and it's expected that that the UK can take a similar approach in these reporting requirements. Yeah, in terms of resource efficiency or resource use, well, we have water and sustainable or materials or packaging in this case. So there's increased demand for better use of these resources. And for example, in terms of sustainable materials packaging, people are still increasing pressuring companies to use environmental friendly packaging. However, there's a huge misconception or a huge confusion between manufacturers or like producers, but also consumers to what these terms mean. So, for example, biodegradable, degradable, compostable, and bio-based plastic. So it's a bit confusing to navigate because there's not enough understanding from different parts of the supply chain about what these terms actually mean. Also for supply chain optimization, the food and drink industry has complex supply chains, which is difficult sometimes to track. So it's one of the hotspots that requires a lot of attention, just considering the complexity, but also like the scale of supply chains that can sometimes be worldwide supply chains. There's also a need to adapt to climate change risk, increase, for example, energy and water consumption due to additional processes. Well, it's something to be to consider, and also to consider mitigation strategies for the future. So especially for future-proofing businesses in terms of this adaptation to climate change, particularly the food and drink businesses that rely on agriculture, food that is produced within the UK, but also elsewhere. So this can create also disruption in supply chains. So just like how to better navigate that and adapt to those changes. And the last one, green marketing and reporting. So there are projects right now seeking to standardize environmental metrics for food businesses that just go beyond legal compliance. And I'm just aiming to provide an effective and efficient solution to enable this environmental data performance and transfer across different food businesses. And then in terms of reporting, there's this increasing consumer and regulatory or legislation pressures on tackling food waste and all the environmental impacts as part of ESG requirements. And then in terms of reporting, it's worthwhile mention that there have been steps taken to address those misleading claims that are not backed up by science. So, for example, when it comes to carbon neutrality or net zero, so how are you demonstrating, like where is your science, or where is like the calculations, the data that backs you up in those claims, and to be as precise as possible. Right, so just to address these issues and these hotspots, data can play a crucial role in addressing these areas, the challenges in these areas. For example, in terms of energy efficiency, data can be used to monitor resource use in real time, identify inefficiencies, optimize energy use. This can help in achieving decarbonization, as we said before, and energy efficiency goals. Data can also provide insights into the environmental impact of different suppliers and ingredients. This can help businesses to make more sustainable choices and reduce the overall footprint. By tracking also the data and analyzing this data on production processes and waste generations, manufacturers can identify areas where waste can be reduced or eliminated altogether. For sustainable packaging, just identifying better packaging options, can be useful to identify the sustainable option based on factors such as recyclability, biodegradability, and the carbon footprint of the production of that material. Again, data can help predict future climate scenarios, as we said before, and the potential impact on operations. So these will allow business plans to be shaped accordingly and to take appropriate measures for adaptations. And also in terms of consumer preferences, can help manufacturers understand the demand for sustainable products and adapt their offerings accordingly. So this is importance of the role of data in addressing these hotspots, particularly to improve environmental sustainability and performance, but also this ultimately will translate in enhancing operational efficiency or meet consumer demands for sustainable products. So it's a threefold impact, I guess. So these are the main data points for sustainability. So the categories that we just spoke about before. So what can I monitor? And then my colleague Sarah will delve deeper into these topics. But overall, so for energy consumption, you can monitor your electricity usage, your operations of your operations, or gas, or any other forms of energy you use, or any other resources you use. You can also keep track of water that is used in your process, especially important for businesses that rely heavily on water usage, such as some of the food and drink sectors. You can also measure the amount of waste that you produce. This includes physical waste and wastewater. Food waste is a bit more complicated to measure, but there have been like some steps being done to improve that measurement of food waste overall in the UK. It's also helpful for supply chain data. You can gather data on your suppliers and the sustainability of their operations, as we said before. This could include energy use, water use, waste generation, and sustainability certifications that your suppliers hold. So just to help on that traceability throughout your supply chain. Also, understanding the environmental impact of your products throughout the life cycle is important. So just having a comprehensive understanding from cradle to grave. So the energy used during, wastewater generated during and throughout the process, and at the end of life. And again, as I said before, one important hotspot is the carbon footprint. So making sure you calculate your business carbon footprint, including direct emissions from your operations and indirect emissions from your supply chain. And one of the data points that can be, or that are being, or is being tracked lately, it's employee travel. That's a part of scope 3 emissions. So indirect emissions, you can monitor the environmental impact of employee travel, for example, commuting, business trips, or like if you use delivery services, deliveries. So there are some, we talk about the hotspots and like how you can track these different data points. However, there are still some barriers for businesses, especially all sizes of businesses, but particularly small, medium enterprises. So, for example, in terms of the use of materials, so packaging is one of the biggest challenge facing food and companies, especially now with all, as I said before, the ESG pressures and the plastic tax. Companies have been working hard to develop and source more sustainable options. However, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So to be completely plastic-free means that companies are having to sacrifice some of the barrier properties that plastic packaging can offer. But then that's the trade-off sometimes food and drink businesses have to take into account, and there's no one single answer or like one solution fits all, but it's it's one of the barriers, especially if there's not enough data to compare the different types of materials or the different types of suppliers. We spoke about traceability before. As I said, the food and drink industry can have very long international complex supply chains, which means that often that most of the time it is unknown, or sometimes unknown, where the product comes from or how sustainable or ethically the ingredients or packaging are produced. However, it's an important point to address because a company cannot achieve sustainability without traceability. So there should be efforts to increase the traceability throughout the supply chain. Data availability. So there's a lack of comprehensive data related to the structure of the food and drink sector. And if there is, it's often outdated or is difficult to access. So for example, some data related to some of the of food and drink operations can date back to 2020, 2021, or sometimes 2022, but still there are some that are not very up to date. So it's difficult to make decisions based on those outdated data. And there's a lack of capital investment or support or funding. So it's clear that sometimes companies, businesses need this support to deliver on sustainability. So it just it's not enough with just having policies, but also funding to address those issues. So these barriers highlight the necessity for SMEs in the food and drink industry to invest in data management overall, and to understand market trends, navigate regulations, and adapt to changes as well. So yeah, I think it's okay. Checking the time. Yeah, so we're good. A few slides more to come. So there are different steps that businesses can adapt to have or create data-driven solutions. First of all, start small. Begin by collecting data on key aspects of your operations. It could be energy use, as we said before, waste generation, or supply chain logistics. It doesn't have to be a complex system. It could be a spreadsheet or a list. Those are good starting points, and then you can progress from that. Use affordable tools. There are many affordable or even free tools available that can help you collect and analyze data. My colleagues Zara and I know Adam and Sally are going to talk about it afterwards. So yeah, make sure you can use you can access those tools that are out there. Set clear goals. Define what sustainability means for your business. Set clear, measurable goals. For example, reducing energy use by a certain percentage. Sorry. Minimize waste. Sourcing certain types of ingredients from some sources, reliable sources. It's very important as well, and I think it's a key point to address, to train your staff and train yourself. Ensure that yourself and your staff understand the importance of sustainability and how to collect and use data. So this includes just providing training sessions, workshops like this that we're delivering today, and different like certifications and courses to help on that understanding. Finally, collaborate and learn. So join industry groups or forums where you can learn from other businesses, share best practices. There are many networks and communities for food and drink businesses for sustainability. So you can also find that information on the TechHUB, especially for the Highlands and Highland Council area. But throughout these steps, at any point, you can also seek for expert help in case that you need it. If you have the resources, if you have the capacity, consider hiring or like going to a sustainability consultant or data analyst that can help you to collect and analyze your data and interpret your data and develop a sustainability strategy. And also at any point in this process, you can always stop, review, and adjust. So sustainability it has to be embedded throughout the operation. So regularly review your data, your progress towards your goals, and adjust your strategies accordingly and as needed. And I'm gonna run through these slides a bit fairly quickly. Again, this is just a recap of what I just said before. So make sure you use some metrics, some KPIs to track your progress and facilitate your comparisons and your how can you compare the progress you've done across the time and reduce your data entry workload. Make use of digital technologies that can enhance environmental traceability, like also, for example, the use of AI into decision-making processes can optimize supply chains and can optimize different aspects of your manufacturing processes. That will also be something Adam, I think, will touch on lately. And again, collaboration is key. So just being part of a food network can lead to efficient and transparent environmental reporting, and you can learn from best practices as well. These are a few resources. I'm gonna quickly skim through those that I think that are useful for you. So these are resources available online that can guide you on your environmental and sustainability journey and data collection. So we have the Food and Drink Achieving Net Zero Handbook, which is a handbook providing practical guidance for food and drink manufacturers to achieve net zero emissions, and then it has some key actions for different businesses. It's mainly for those businesses that are starting in this sustainability journey. It's a very detailed, comprehensive handbook. I really suggest you having a look at that, and yeah, and see what can be applied for your context. The same handbook has some actions divided by category. So you have 5 different categories and what you can do to improve your performance in those categories. For example, in manufacturing. So although manufacturing is responsible for only a small proportion of food and drinks emissions, carbon emissions, they can reduce their footprint straight away. For example, improving energy efficiency, procuring renewable electricity, decarbonizing heat processes, sourcing 100% renewable energy when it can be possible, switching to sustainable refrigerants. Same for ingredients. For example, you have there that the larger source of the sector's emissions is the production of raw ingredients. So emissions associated with ingredients that can vary widely, but for example, those with higher emissions tend to be imported ingredients linked to deforestation or some types of animal products. So this handbook advocates for measuring your ingredients emissions, procuring lower carbon ingredients, incorporating also carbon targets into product reformulation, and so on and so forth. So again, the links are there for you to explore these resources further. Another useful resource is the Partnership to Net Zero Commitment Program. It outlines the commitment of Scotland to achieve net zero emissions and emphasizes the sector's role in transition to this net zero scenario and how it plans to tackle the most pressing shared challenges. So it's also good to have a look at this, and it has also these 5 key areas. So it provides a route that can support businesses into this net zero journey with green skills, fair work, lifelong careers in rural and urban areas of Scotland as well. So there's the link there for you to explore this. And the last one updated recently is the Food Data Transparency Partnership that aims to provide environmental sustainability and healthiness of food and drink through better and more transparent food data. This is a collaboration between government, industry, also academia and civil society to develop consistent, defined metrics to measure the environmental sustainability. So the main goal is that, and to improve the availability, quality, and comparability of data in the food supply chain. And they have 2 working groups they have established already. One of them is called the Eco Working Group, and the other one, the Health Working Group. So those are both developing proposals to measure and communicate carbon emissions in the food system, and to support food and drink companies that want to voluntarily report on the healthiness and carbon emissions of their productions. So yeah, again, links are there if in case you want to explore this a bit further. So how can you use this data? So the different type of data I mentioned, I know it's a lot to take in, but now that we've learned about this, or like we've kind of like touched on this, it's time to think how you can apply this to your own business and to your own experience. So I will hand over now to Sarah, finally, who will delve deeper into how to use these data or types of data to measure the environmental impact of your business. So yeah, Sarah, over to you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Luisa. Hello, everyone. I was wondering, Lisa, do we have the little poll?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Just one sec here.
So before we start, I really wanted to ask a question, just to get a feel for the people in the room, just to see, whether you guys already collect any kind of environmental data. So if you could just answer yes or no, that would be quite good. So there should be a little table popped up on your screen. And that's really just to understand, like what kind of level your business is at. Don't be shy if you don't collect any. That's absolutely fine. That's why you're here. So do we have any results, Louisa? Don't think I'll be able to see on my screen. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think, there it is.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, everyone. So we do have some people here who do collect some environmental data. My follow-up question on that was, what are the main drivers for collecting this data? So again, just to kind of get a better understanding, like is it because of mandatory reporting? Is it customer supply chain requirements? Is it to kind of improve cost efficiency, to reduce your costs? Is it sustainability that you're generally interested in that? Or is it something completely different that we've not covered in the list? Maybe if we get the guys who said no, that they don't that they don't collect the environmental data, could you maybe also actually vote in this poll, and we just treat it as, this, if we were to collect environmental data, this would be our main driver, if that makes sense. It's just, again, quite good to see, what would be the main motivations for businesses in this kind of sector to start collecting environmental data. And then for those who do already collect, then what are the main drivers there? While you're voting, I think I'm going to provide just a little bit more background about myself as well, just to put my presentation into a little bit more context. So as Louisa already said, in my previous role, I worked as an environmental coordinator for major UK retail asset management company. I personally was based at a shopping center where I was responsible for environmental data collection and processing of the data, analysis, reporting back to the head office. This was a major corporation with assets all over the UK, in Ireland, in France. So you can imagine we were subject to a lot of kind of mandatory reporting. So it was, streamlined energy and carbon reporting, other kind of greenhouse gas reporting. And our data was kind of fed directly into the sustainability reports every single year. It was a publicly traded company, so a lot of interest from the investors and shareholders as well into the various kind of categories of performance, not just the financial but also environmental. As such, we were subject to various different audits throughout the year. So there were internal audits, external audits. We had the environmental management certification, so that was the ISO 14001, energy management certification 50001, and our data also got kind of third party validated by Deloitte before it was input into the kind of end of year report. So that's obviously, that the company was subject to a lot of kind of obligations towards the government, but also towards its shareholders, which means that it invested a lot of resources in data management. And I'm completely aware that your businesses may not be in that same position. You might not be able to do, such an extensive work and have so many resources available. But I think it's still, there's an advantage in me, understanding, what is possible to do with data, because it can kind of give you an idea. And I will also try to kind of cover what's possible to do on the basic level. So that it's accessible to kind of any sized company, really, anywhere in the UK. So that was just a little bit of background. So we had the results of the polls and the little table just disappeared from my screen, Louisa. Sorry, I was talking for too long.
No, you're right. No, so I've got most, or like, yeah, the majority of the people here is for sustainability reasons, and the second most popular one was cost efficiency. So those are the
Awesome.
two main ones. Yeah.
No, that sounds really good. Definitely very good motivations. Absolutely, all of them were really in the list. But yeah, no, that's fine. With that, I think we can move on to my first slide. Perfect. Thanks, Louisa. I do realize this slide is quite busy, and I don't know how big it's on your screen. So, and also, Louisa has covered some of that already in her first part. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but I just wanted to show that there are various different categories of kind of what you would consider environmental data, environmental key performance indicators. And it really depends what you want to measure for your business, for your company. So on the left-hand side, I've kind of listed more kind of comprehensive environmental KPIs that will give you a better overview of the sustainability of your business. Some of these data, a lot of these data is quantitative. So you could be, you can collect actual figures on, your greenhouse gases, like for emissions to air, water, and land, it'll be looking at greenhouse gases, smog, dust particles, ozone depleting substances, volatile organic compounds. It's a lot, or use of fertilizers, pesticides, nutrients and organic pollutants, metal emissions. So a lot of that can be quantitative, as in numbers, but some of it can be also quite qualitative. For example, biodiversity. In Scotland, as far as I'm aware, we don't really have a kind of quantitative matrix to be kind of used widely. That there are tools out there that you can use, and that you've got the biodiversity net gain down in England that will probably become a thing up here in Scotland. Not sure what kind of version of that, but for biodiversity, you might not be necessarily measuring in kind of quantities what you've got on your land. If you've got land, you might not own land, but maybe you own just a little bit of green space just outside your entrance. So is there a tree? Is there a shrub? Is it flowering? Can you create a little flower bed? And that's not something that you would necessarily quantify, but it's something that will build a kind of bigger, better picture of the overall sustainability of your business. Environmental fines and expenditure, again, an indicator that shows the environmental legislation compliance and how well you're doing. Do you get complaints, noise complaints, nuisance? How do you deal with them? Is it quite frequent? Is there something that you could improve? What I will be mostly focusing on, though, is the kind of the middle column that I've named UK greenhouse gas reporting. So what it lists is the kind of greenhouse gas reporting categories, and this column particularly only lists kind of the big six that I think are the main ones. That if you've never done any environmental data collection or reporting, these are definitely the ones to start with. There are other categories such as, business travel that Louisa mentioned, freighting of goods, hotel stays, managed assets, home working. But I think they just get a little bit perhaps more complicated and more difficult to measure. So in the first instance, I would just focus on these big six if you are currently not doing any of that. Not all of them will be relevant for your business as well, because you might just not simply have sources of this kind of consumption in your business. But if you do, then you should definitely see if you can collect data on it. And these do obviously feed into your greenhouse gas reporting, and that information will be used for your climate change action. But I just wanted to highlight that that's not all information these provide, and I will touch on that when talking through my case studies later on. On the right-hand side, I've provided the just kind of the units of what you would be, and the actual data, what you would be collecting. So fuels consumption, you would be looking at liters of petrol, diesel, or oil for all your liquid fuels that your business uses. Maybe your business uses natural gas, so you'll be looking at cubic meters or kilowatt hours, depending how it's reported in your business, of natural gas. Maybe there's solid fuels as well that I've not included in the list. So, you know, is it wood that you're burning? So, you know, that would be the actual amount of biomass. And I'm not going to go through the full list just to save some time. I believe you'll have access to this recording afterwards. So, you know, if you need to, you can maybe stop or pause it and just kind of look through the list. What else is required in order to report on refrigerants, electricity, water supply, material use, or waste disposal. Can we move on, please? Okay, perfect. So case studies. Right. So this graph, I'm aware that it's quite busy. There's a lot of different lines. So again, I'll try to talk you through this. So this is the electricity consumption that was measured and monitored in my previous job. Most of these are based on electricity meter readings, so an actual manual meter reading. So when you go and read the meter, take the recording, and then you calculate your consumption based on that. So that's something that I think pretty much anyone should be able to do it. You know, of course, you have to make sure that you know what meters you have on site, you know what meters supply your electricity, if you've got one, or do you have several on your premises, where they are, and you need to make sure you have access to them as well. Kind of easy access, so that it doesn't involve climbing up ladders or going up to the roof, etc., so that you can go and take the readings on regular basis. For kind of context, so this electricity consumption is reported for kind of landlord-owned area. So you can imagine in a shopping center, you've got the main mall, the kind of shared space, common space, and then you've got your tenant units. So these units are usually, or were in this instance, metered separately, and they had their own kind of electricity supply, their own meters, their own bills that they needed to worry about. For the landlord consumed electricity, what we did have to do, so there were 4 main incoming meters. So that was basically all of them added up. That was all electricity coming into the shopping center. Unfortunately, not all this electricity was used by the common and shared spaces. There were a few units that were submetered from these incoming meters. So that meant that involved a little bit of analysis, you know, knowing, like mapping out, you know, where the electricity supplies are, which meters go where, and making sure that, you know, if you want your accurate data for your, you know, and actually this landlord area as your business, making sure that you're only measuring that. So for example, if your business is within, you know, a space that's kind of shared with other businesses, and there's just one incoming meter, and maybe your particular operation is not submetered, you know, then good idea to get it submetered. If you perhaps lease some of the space that you own to another business, again, making sure that that business is separately submetered. Obviously, for the bills purposes, making sure that you're charging for what other businesses and what all businesses are consuming, but also, you know, for your sustainability, environmental data reporting, you just want kind of accurate picture of what your own business is consuming. So in terms of the graph, as I said, this was mostly produced using manual monthly meter reads. So every month, engineers would go out and take meter readings from about 50 different meters. So that's quite a complex operation. And electricity was actually the easiest one to get done compared to the other ones. I'd imagine most of your businesses probably don't have this kind of level of complexity, hopefully. And if you do, then just to warn you, it can be quite labor intensive. well, in this graph, we've got data for quite a few years. So that's really good. You know, it is this kind of consistency in data recording and reporting. So then you can clearly start watching the trends, you know, what's happening with your consumption. Is it increasing, decreasing? Is it fluctuating? You know, is it doing something that we don't expect? So when we look at the data for the year 2015, which is the purple line in the top, that's, you know, very clearly by far the highest recorded consumption over the period of the 5 years that we see in this graph. Then looking at 2016, which is a yellow line, you know, that year, you can clearly see that that consumption got fairly way more stable than back in 2015. In 2015, there was a lot of fluctuation. There was this peak in March. I wasn't there in 2015, so I can only, you know, guess what happened. It might have been really cold month, so the air handling units were maybe running like more than they would normally in March. So, and they were just on. So that could be one case. Another reason for that might be, and that sometimes happened, you know, when you're taking manual meter reads and there's so many different meters that you need to read, you might not be able to get it all done in one day. You might not have engineers available on the first of the month because maybe they're busy with dealing with, you know, more urgent issues. So sometimes there are delays, you know, days of delays when you're taking the monthly meter reads, which then can show as a spike in March, for example, and then kind of drop the following month. But in reality, the you know, maybe the consumption was a little bit more leveled. But you just need to understand all this context within which the meter reads are being taken and how the data is analyzed, and then to be able to explain what's happened. Maybe none of that happened and there was just this spike in March, and it was completely unexpected. And that can now indicate, you know, is there something wrong going on in the shopping center? Is this something running that's not supposed to be running? You know, is there something, do we have a fault on any of the equipment that's now causing the spike in consumption that's not supposed to be happening? And that can now allow you to actually go and investigate what's happening in your operations. So this is just theoretical. If that was the case in 2015 in March, and if there was an actual fault, you know, then clearly they've managed to fix it in April. So that could have just continued as high consumption over the year if they didn't notice that in time. But if they did, you know, they just fixed it in April and then the consumption went back to normal. Now, obviously, the shopping center was subject to net zero targets and also, you know, like just overall kind of electricity reduction consumption targets. So, and that was kind of working, I think, for most of the years. You can see that the consumption has been decreasing kind of every single year. And again, like this data kind of allows you to watch, you know, any kind of efficiency improvements that you implement. You will then be able to see that if you track the consumption consistently and if you have this kind of historic data as well. So yeah, so we've got in 2016, the yellow line, sorry, we've got, you know, that's kind of fairly stable consumption, no spikes really. There's a little spike in November. Again, I can only guess that was a really cold November perhaps. 2017, there's, which is the blue line, kind of light blue. There's, you know, it kind of, that was jumping up and down really, especially in the first half of the year. You know, that kind of, this fluctuation March and May, then, you know, there was potentially some inconsistency in some of the data collected. Perhaps I'm not entirely sure what was going on. I really joined the company in 2018. And I can explain what happened in 2018, which is the green line. If you can see it, it's kind of closely followed by the red line, which was the target for 2019 that we needed to get close to. But in 2018, sorry, the green one, I can remember that in August, that's what happened is that the engineers took the meter readings slightly kind of into September. So that's why we see spike in August, drop in September, and then it goes back to October. So they weren't simply available at the end of August because, you know, holiday and summertime. So it was well into September when they finally took the meter reads. this data then was attributed to August, which caused the spike. And then September, because they were again taking the meter readings at the end of September, all of a sudden became shorter, which showed kind of lower consumption. In reality, this would have been a little bit more spread out, but that's fine. We knew about it. We knew what happened. So we were able to explain it. There was nothing to worry about. The spike wasn't to worry about. And then finally, we've got 2019, which is the pink line, which is kind of starting the lowest. When you look at kind of January, it's the one that's the lowest consumption, and it's well below every recorded consumption in previous years from January to May. And again, we were able to very clearly attribute this to the installation of LED lighting on the mall. So although it wasn't the entire mall, it wasn't the entire landlord area, what we've done, there was just kind of one corridor when the lighting got replaced, and we were hoping to see a reduction in electricity, and the reduction was very clear, very kind of tangible, which again kind of gives you more confidence when you start implementing energy reduction kind of measures. If you can immediately start seeing the improvements, that's really quite nice and relaxing feeling to be able to track it in your data, especially if you've made some estimates of how much energy should be reduced with this initiative. If you start seeing this reduction, that's definitely a really kind of satisfying feeling. Just to note here, so as I said, the data started off with purely manual meter reads and kind of manual analysis. So that involves a lot of kind of Excel data spreadsheet work. So just to kind of make it very clear, there is some commitment and determination that's required from you to look at environmental data, just like any other data, I guess, and a lot of Excel spreadsheets. So if you already have someone in the business who doesn't mind playing around with Excel spreadsheets, then maybe that's the right person to give this particular task to, because they might even enjoy it. You just kind of need like a little data geek who will be quite happy to do various different analysis and show you the trends and kind of help you understand your business performance better. Just to note here, we did kind of gradually started improving the data with automated half-hourly meter reads. So, they provided us with a little bit more information on the trends, although we weren't quite able to fully use them because, as I explained, some of this data was actually sold to some of the tenants. So I still had to subtract them. So they just provided me with the trends of like the absolute incoming electricity. And then eventually we installed smart meters, which makes sense for such a big operation for sure, because you want to be able to have the data kind of readily available. Just to note here, it's not completely unproblematic. So smart meters, and now like my technical understanding of them was quite good back when I worked there, and it kind of faded away since I left. But basically, so that there are like these kind of boxes, receivers, that have SIM cards in them, basically, and that's what collects the data and sends the data to whatever digital platform you're using to view the data. Now, the downside of that is that utility meters tend to be very often in areas that just don't have very good reception. So for the shopping center, it was back of house, they will be at the back of the building. They can be somewhere in the cupboard. They could be in the cellar. They could be in the loft. And quite often that's not places that have very good reception. So that's like your normal kind of mobile reception because they just have SIM cards in them, which means that there could be sometimes problem with sending and receiving the data. I don't have the experience with, if you have one smart meter, 2, 3 smart meters on your site, how difficult that can get. If they're in a good position, then you're absolutely fine and you'll be laughing and you'll have your data available. If they are, quite, kind of put away and sheltered and there's just no good reception, then it might involve a lot of kind of resetting and going back and forth with whatever company provides you with that service. But when they worked, they were perfect, and I'll demonstrate it in my other kind of case studies. But yeah, just to tell you that it's not all just kind of fun and games. We did kind of strive to continuously improve the data quality as well, and I was there, dedicated person to play about with the data, see what improvements we can make. So that definitely helped. As I said, I absolutely understand the resource might not be available everywhere. So it's only kind of, as Louisa said already, start small, just see what you can do, what's within your power at the moment, and then start with that and see where it takes you later. It does require consistency, because in order to be able to see the trends, you really want to see what's happening. So if you're recording data for calendar months, then make sure it's for the full calendar month, rather than, just kind of ad hoc, whenever I like to take the meter readings, because then you might just lose important data for particular months. That will allow you to see the trends, and then also timely response to issues. Okay, I think we can move on, Lisa. So this is a case study of kind of gas consumption, which we were able to identify a fault within gas boilers using smart metering now. So basically, the shopping center had 2 plant rooms, and one of the plant room, each plant room had 2 gas boilers, which supplied heat and hot water to the mall. Now, the building management system, or the BMS, which is basically like a platform where you can kind of set, everything that runs on electricity, you can connect it to the platform and kind of automatically set it to set things to turn on and off, similar to our kind of smart home appliances, I guess. The BMS was set up for these boilers to come on at 6 o'clock in the morning as the shopping center opened, and then turn off at 10:30 p.m. when the shopping center closed. Now, when I had time, I was kind of looking around all these different kind of sub-meters that I already had set up on a platform called Envisi. Basically, the shopping center, so we had smart meters installed on like all these different kind of key point areas of the shopping center. And these smart meters were recording data in kind of half-hourly intervals. And this data was then sent to a platform called Envisi back then. So I think it's an Australian platform, and I think they've been acquired by IBM since then. So things might have changed, but back then that's the platform I used. And Envisi basically took the data, processed them, applied the right conversions to put them into the units that were useful for me to view, and then produced these various different dashboards. And I'll show you the consumption profiles of the meters, what it looked like in a second. But, I was then able to kind of click on my meter and see what's happening with consumption with electricity, water, and gas. And see the trends. So I was playing about with Envisi, looking at this plant room, and I noticed that the plant room, that the gas consumption is just consistent. It never stops, it never drops to zero, and it's just always there. So I wasn't sure how this was set up by the engineers, so I just brought it to one of the tech guys in the shopping center. I said, look, like, are these boilers supposed to be running all night long as well as, during the day? And they said, no, they're not. They're switching off at night. What are you talking about? And I said, well, I can see in the data here they're not switching off. So they didn't quite believe me, and they thought it must be something wrong with the meters and something wrong, like I'm not seeing it right. So what we did in the first instance, we asked the night shift to go and check the gas meters, the boilers, to see if they're indeed running overnight, and indeed they were. So that was, that now we confirmed the BMS is faulty. It's meant to be turning these boilers off, and it's not. So then there was this question of, okay, so if the boilers did starting turning off during the night, we know that often appliances, when they come back on, there's this spike in consumption that's kind of associated with things kind of heating up again, especially with gas boilers. You know, if the water in them goes cold, obviously it'll drive more energy when they first switch back on. So we were quite worried that if if they start switching on, off and on, that maybe this spike will actually result in an increased consumption overall. So we thought, what if this is actually a better solution? What if it's actually better for them to just kind of run constantly during the night? So before we went and fixed the BMS issue, what we did is we trialed manually switching them off every night and switching them back on every morning. So we just asked the engineers who were in the shopping center, make sure you go and switch them off at 10:30 and switch them back on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we've done it for a week. And thanks to having the smart meters, I was like, we run this kind of trial for a week, and I was able to analyze it within a few days to see what kind of difference it made, and then use this data to justify the fixing of the fault within the BMS. So you can see the table here. It shows that, I looked at the consumption of these boilers for a week between end of January and beginning of February, and it was 33,500 kilowatt hours for the week. And then we started switching them off at night, and the following week, as we started doing that, the consumption dropped by about 16%. And now this was enough for us to justify, yes, we should invest in fixing the BMS failure. Just so you know, BMS can be quite complicated, and it can be, it's quite technical, and you need to get like certified engineers to come and fix it. So that can, make it a little bit more awkward and quite costly as well. So, this was really a good way to justify, yes, we need to fix this failure, and it's going to result in overall decrease in gas bills for the year. So if we just move on, and I'll just talk you through the consumption profile. Thanks, Louisa. So this is what I saw on the Envisi platform using the smart metering, and just to explain what you're looking at, the blue line tracks the actual consumption that was recorded for the second week that I showed the data for in the previous slide in the table. Now, you can see there are these drops, not quite regular. I think, once or twice the engineers actually forgot to switch the boilers off, which is fine, like they've never had to do it before. So on about 2 days, they actually haven't switched them off, and we still saw the 16% reduction, even with like these 2, 3, 4 nights when they were switched off. You can also indeed see the spike in the consumption every single time the boilers came back on. So what we kind of feared would contribute to an overall increased consumption, we can see that it's there, but then it's just for the first kind of half an hour, and then it goes to kind of normal operation. Another thing that Envisi was able to provide us with is your kind of expected profile. So that's the black line that kind of runs behind the blue line across the graph, and that's basically based on the historic data that was recorded for this plant room. So again, that just kind of confirms that this plant room hasn't probably switched off for quite a while, and it's just been running constantly, and Envisi now expects it to run constantly. So doing all of that, we were able to save at least 8% gas consumption by the end of the year. It was a good thing that we also noticed that at the beginning of the year. It was also 2020. So on top of that, it was your pandemic year. Every business, and, special businesses like these that literally had to shut down, lost most of their income. Every business was looking at ways to save their costs. And this is just a really good example where, smart metering, having data available, and even if it wasn't smart metering, if it was manual meter reads, we would sooner or later, we would probably be able to identify there's a problem. That allowed us to kind of make some cost savings as it was needed during the pandemic. Now I have just two, I don't know, I've been talking for very long. If you can't tell, I am a little bit of a data geek, and I haven't been working with data that much in my current role. So putting these slides together just kind of awakened this data geek in me. But what I wanted to just touch on briefly is two examples of water consumption that are like kind of close to my heart. I think water consumption is something that not many businesses like think about as much, unless you're obviously using a lot of water in your operations, in your manufacturing. Then maybe, yeah, well, that's obviously a big kind of source of consumption for you. On the other hand, I think water in Scotland, even for businesses, tends to be very cheap, especially for like small and medium enterprises where, you know, they don't often get charged for water. So it's not one to think about, but since you guys indicated that sustainability is a big topic for you and a reason why you would be looking at environmental data and a kind of reduction of your impacts, then, you know, I'm gonna cover this as well. So this is this graph is a consumption profile of a shopping unit, so of a shop. It shows water consumption for the whole shop. Now this was a clothes shop. The shop had, I think, about 3 or 4 public toilets, some sinks obviously in the toilets as well, and then 1 or 2 toilets for their staff as well. They're not restaurants, so they're not necessarily a shop where you would kind of expect a lot of water consumption to take place. Yet this shop was consuming, and you know, that's kind of to the left of the graph, what you can see is there is a constant consumption of at least 400 liters of water per hour. So that's obviously massive, and that's concerning. There are all these kind of spikes and drops, which I think pretty much tracks, you know, when the toilets were flushing and when the taps were running, but also like the consumption just never drops down. What we found is that there were these constantly running, flushing toilets in the unit. So they've had like a historic problem with the plumbing that just wasn't really done well in the unit. They've always had, you know, toilets leaking. But on top of that, you know, there's this kind of constant trickling of water at the back of the toilet, you know, through the cistern. And, you know, I think that's a very, very usual thing that you see in most toilets. And I think it's really easy to get used to. And you just kind of think, yeah, it's fine. Like, and you don't even think that that actually causes consumption most of the time. But using the smart metering, I was it just became very visible and very apparent that that's exactly what's happening. So where you see the drop in the middle of the graph, that's, you know, what happened is that, you know, I was sending data to the shop manager who had been kind of struggling to get the head office, you know, interested in even fixing this issue. Because as I said, you know, water, it's not very popular. If you're managing a shop store, you know, you're just not thinking about like water consumption. Like as long as people can use the toilets, you know, whatever, we'll just pay the bills. But because I was able to feed all this data to this store manager, she kind of kept pushing on their head office. Finally, they got the plumber in, and that's what happened on the day where you see the drop. You know, the plumber came in. It was, you know, like 1-day job, probably not too expensive because it doesn't tend to be big faults. It tends to be just small kind of seals, a piece of rubber that needs to be replaced because it's worn out in the toilet. And that's what they did. You can also see in this graph, the consumption actually hasn't dropped to 0. So there was still some kind of ongoing issue. But, you know, it's, you know, the store still saw a massive decrease in the overall water consumption. And I've got one more example of this as well, and that's my last case study. So this was another clothes shop where they only had 1 toilet and 1 sink in their unit and nothing else that would ever be consuming water or should be ever consuming water. Now, you know, looking at the data again, just kind of seeing what's going on in the shopping center, I noticed this small clothes shop had the same water consumption as some of the biggest restaurants we had in the shopping center. And I just thought, well, that's it can't be right. Like, surely that's this, there's something wrong with the data. But I noticed that it's always had that consumption, going back, historical data. And I'm just like, that can't be right. And the same thing was happening in this shop. So it was just this constant, flushing through the toilet. The people in the shop didn't even use the toilet. They just used the center toilets, but just kept it running through, and didn't really worry about it, not realizing how much consumption it used. So again, we kept pushing, sending data through to the head office. When we finally got them to send an engineer in, I believe it was like a 30-minute job this time. It was like a really fast, easy, and cheap fix. And within, a month, you can see the massive drop. So in October, their consumption was 145 and 740 liters of water in this one toilet. And then in November, it dropped right down to 2,770 liters. So that's a 98% reduction of water. Sadly, money-wise, it does not make such a big difference. I think it made only about £1,000. Now, that might be, like, for me, that's major. That's a massive saving. For some of these shops, very sadly, it's just not. So here, the motivation, that was like our way to pressure them was really just the sustainability and the fact that we want to reduce our resource use, and it was the water that we were pushing them on with. Okay, that's my case studies. I think, yeah, I have definitely taken way too long. So I'll just wrap up very quickly. So I just want to show all this data that I've spoken about really is the same categories as you would use for your greenhouse gas reporting. But I just wanted to show the varied range of like what this data can be used for. So by now, the benefits should be quite clear, hopefully. Of course, like all these drops and reductions we've seen in the consumption will have also translated in your in our bills. So there is massive cost saving opportunity. And I just wanted to say, it does not always, sustainability or improvement of efficiency or improvement in in costs does not always involve purchase of new equipment. It does not always involve innovation and like a massive changes that require a lot of investment. They can be just these easy kind of, identify a fault. There's always something that can be improved. Like, I'm 100% convinced with that. There's these kind of small tweaks, inefficiencies. Are the lights on for too long? Is the heating running unnecessarily too long? Can we run this at different times of the day so we don't overload the network? So, start small, as Louisa said. Start identifying, your peaks, your drops, your trends, what's happening. Is this meant to be happening in the operation? And start implementing changes, measuring your the impacts of those changes, and hopefully seeing improvements as well. I think that's enough from me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that, and thank you so much for like sharing with us all these case studies. As you said, like sometimes it doesn't have to be something big that we do, like simple, like like being able to monitor, track different data points, and then like analyze those points, making the questions and say, well, what can we improve, or like as you said before, like is this supposed to be doing that or not? Yeah, just like providing that that advice of like start small, but also you don't have to do a lot of investment just to be to like make a change. So thank you so much, Sarah, for that. Perfect. So now we're going to move on to our like last speakers, so Adam and Saleh from the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub. So yeah, Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Louisa. Yes, it's a really great pleasure to meet you all this morning. So I wanted to come and talk to you about the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub. Aware that I was here for the last session as well, but very much wearing my SMDH hat today. Next slide, please. So just to start the journey of who we are, where we came from, what we do, I'll cover that just now. So Smart Manufacturing Data Hub, as we lovingly refer to it now as SMDH, we love a good acronym. We are a delivery of 13 different partners. We're a kind of amalgamation of all of them that have come together to provide expertise to manufacturers, specifically focusing on SME manufacturers, but we do cover kind of manufacturing overall. We are a £54 million project run over 3 years. And as part of that, we have £21 million worth of grant. And within that 21 million, there's an additional 6 million that is available for Digital Innovation Fund, which I will talk about towards the end of my presentation. The Data Lab are the leading force behind the rollout of data science exercises across this project, but we do draw from expertise from within the activity of the other partners as well to help us to deliver this. Our whole mission is around driving productivity improvements within manufacturing, and we'll cover that off around some of our offerings. And so I know Sally will give you a brief demonstration of those solutions as we go forward. Next slide, please. So we know that within the manufacturing sector that there are a number of challenges that organizations are having to face at this current moment in time. So we're obviously looking for more output from less people, particularly when we're looking at this productivity conversation. We know that in the wake of COVID and then obviously in the cost of living challenges that we're currently facing, supply chain disruptions are quite common. They're certainly much more frequent in their activity. And these are down to a number of reasons that we've come across over the last couple of years. And certainly it's something that we know that manufacturers here in the UK are really struggling with. We also know that there is an element of skill shortages. So again, this could be related back to kind of freedom of movement policies, but also it could also be linked to availability of casual staff, full-time available staff, and the kind of constant stream of upskilling individuals coming out of organizations. We know that in the wake, again, of COVID, that there's been a massive surge in global competition. There's obviously a race around price pressures, alongside this essence of global competition as well. Now, coupled all of these things together, you've got an overriding long-term goal to move towards net zero. And all of these pressures are facing manufacturers up and down the UK. And certainly that is still very much true for food and drink organisations as well. Next, please. So we know that organizations are having to deal with a number of themes and activities around digitalization in the manufacturing sector. We know that there's enough programs going on across the United Kingdom around the kind of adoption programs, the activities that are happening within the local enterprise partnerships, the mayoral activity that happens in England, and then likewise within our enterprise zones in Scotland and from our enterprise agencies. And certainly we work alongside the Highlands and Islands enterprise on bringing these types of solutions to you. So we'll look at these themes. We know that organizations are at some point of their journey on their adoption or at least their awareness of these types of activities. So this could be Industry 4 is a big overall topic. Looking at AI, AI is a really hot topic. Certainly we're hosting a series of webinars in our own right around how AI could be used around productivity. As a matter of fact, we've got them today. But certainly what we're looking at is this essence of IoT, very cheap, easy to install IoT technologies, working alongside some sensors that might already be installed within modern manufacturing devices. We're able to gain insight in a very meaningful way. We understand that robotics is not for everybody. It might be eligible for certain parts of the economy, but certainly this essence of cobots and working alongside robotics is something that is a really big area of traction. Not many people have heard of digital twins, and certainly it's something that's, again, coming into its own maturity. We're looking at how digital twin technology is there to take a factory floor, learn how we can model, simulate certain environments. So, for example, you could take the example from gown manufacturing during COVID. We found many organizations were not able to make PPE-related products, and certainly being able to onshore that in the UK would have been fantastic for our NHS. And one thing that we would be able to do here is we'd be able to simulate if I needed to switch my plant from producing one product to another product very quickly. We could simulate how that factory floor could be set up, how you could become very resilient in the wake of something such as this. And we saw parts of this from the food and drink industry where where organizations that were used to making alcohol products were then pivoting very quickly to making hand gels and activities such as this. So this is where you can simulate very quickly your factory floor, and working alongside our adoption partners, organizations like SMAS, here in Scotland as well. One of the outputs that they provide you is a kind of 2D factory floor plan. We can take that and take it into a 3D model and ingest all of that data through some of the activities that we have in our virtual platforms. And then finally, we're looking at additive manufacturing as a way of being able to reduce the amount of wastage that's being produced. So certainly for organizations that are making products in this area, we are again providing activities and support of how companies can access additive manufacturing support. Next slide, please. So very briefly, we have these 5 areas that exist within the Made Smarter adoption and innovation activities. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that we have this demo environment. This is where we have procured at scale, and SMEs can access all of these free of charge. This is the one thing that I would mention up front. And this is a real giveaway to organizations. So in this demo environment, as I've mentioned, we've got the types of simulation software that we've acquired at scale. We can then help you to use that software. We don't expect you to become experts in using it. We have already got the experts that do that as well. And what we're able to do is we're able to go through an element of simulation around either a process, a factory, or at lots of different levels. We've done lots of different simulation technologies. So we've got down to things like robotic arms, which have been virtualized and you access them via the internet. Just like booking into a library or booking something out of a library, you have a very similar concept here. You go onto the tool, you book your access onto that tool, it spins it up in an environment for you, and you're able to simulate that and assisted alongside our colleagues here at the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub as well. The second of these is our engagement platform, and this is where we have our Made Smarter, the smart manufacturing community. The community is a platform that's there with individuals who are perhaps one stage ahead of you in the journey, who are coming back to import that knowledge into the community. So it's very much self-learning from each other. We've had some really nice success stories coming out of the community. We've had organizations that are looking to produce products. They potentially don't know where to go to produce that product. And again, through the power of the community, we've been able to drop in instances of where organizations can come and help other founding organizations as they start on that journey. So it's very much a place, a community, a place for organizations to come together to support and assist each other, have really powerful conversations. We also facilitate some of that through monthly themes. So it's around how do we attack things like net zero? How do we help you with that? How do we build the right toolkits? All of that is discussed in this platform, and again, free of charge for you to sign up to. We understand, again, particularly from an SME manufacturing point of view, that their upskilling and learning is a really important thing for them to do. They don't often think about it as being a priority, specifically when it comes to data skills. This is where I would see that the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub has a real opportunity to be able to offer and facilitate online learning to individuals. We've met with organizations who are perhaps on that journey of adoption of these types of technologies and maybe just need a little bit of upskilling around what types of terms are there with data and how does data relate to manufacturing. These courses are very much from entry level all the way up to quite sophisticated courses and everything in between. So you'll find something in that platform that again attracts you. You can offer that open to your employees. Again, it's a free of charge platform. There's no cost for any of that content. And this is where we've again provided it at scale, free of charge to manufacturers. So there's a really big value add that we're able to provide. Over on the very right-hand side of this screen, you'll see I've mentioned the deploy. So what we do here, again, as Sarah was just mentioning, we've got a series of sensors that can integrate very, very well into your factories. These can be things like air quality monitoring, power monitoring, utilization of machinery, air quality. We could cover off particulates specifically for certain applications. Things like paint shops, paint stores are they've got very strict guidance around what elements of um, uh, particulate matters is in the air, and they have to really quickly monitor that and stay on top of it. But likewise, there'll be offerings within the food and drink sector as well that are really relevant. This could be cooling, it could be heating. If you're doing that, you're using energy somewhere on that journey. And again, we would like to make sense of that data for you. We have these things down in the bottom right-hand corner that are called lighthouse suppliers. Lighthouses were basically projects that have been funded, almost projects within a project. We've got organizations like Total Control Pro and Output Industries and FlowLens. These organizations link into current systems, but also they provide software packages over the top of what you've already got. This again helps you to understand as part of the production process where your products are from end to end, and also that can help you to manage the inflows of product and ingredients all the way through to the actual manufacture and the distribution. We've also partnered with a series of technology providers that can also offer us sensors. So if you've got machinery that's maybe out of date or is not so up to date with regards to onboard telemetry data that's able to be beamed off of those devices, there is still ways and means of actually turning a relatively not intelligent machine and making it smart. So we can do that in a very quick, easy, cheap way of doing it. This is where, again, we'll provide you with the sensor free of charge. And we'll even then go one step further and beam that data through into our Insights platform. The Insights platform, which is behind the scenes, is what we call the Manufacturing Data Exchange platform. This is where all of our data coming off of these devices beams into. You're then able to gather insight from this platform, and I know we'll link very quickly to my colleague Sally at the end of this presentation for a very quick demo of some of the types of visualizations that we have. Within here, we've found again some really interesting activities. We've had organizations that are completely on this journey, and they're everywhere on that journey is what I would say. There's no wrong point to join this activity. We really have dealt with organizations who have started to understand and grapple with energy. So again, just to reiterate what Sarah was mentioning, you know, energy has become a really hot topic, excuse the pun, but certainly it's become a really big hot topic in this area at this current moment in time, given the prices. So we've been able to reduce the cost, so that ultimately it means that those price increases are not having to be passed on to your consumers. They're not being having to be passed on to your distributors, that then ultimately still ends up in the consumer's pocket having to pay more. So ultimately, what we're aiming to do here is helping you to gain control of your overall costs. Next slide, please. So I mentioned very briefly at the very beginning that we have the Digital Innovation Fund. This is a £6 million funding, and we are on the second, third, and fourth rounds of certain types of funding calls. So what I wanted to just mention very quickly is we have 3 different levels of funding. The first of those levels of funding is for up to £50,000, and it's for a demonstrated project. This is where organizations could be working with tech providers, system integrators, or suppliers. What they're able to do is they're able to demonstrate the application of this technology in their manufacturing environment. So this is for organizations that are wanting to employ the technologies themselves, but what we ask is that you become a demonstrator, almost a beacon to organizations yourself, so that you stand up and you say, I have employed this technology. We make a case study with you and in combination with you that's to the value out of both ourselves and to you. And what we do is we take that information and we promote that outward. So there's a lot of money in the business at this current moment in time that's coming forward for demonstration level activity. So I would really encourage you, if you're on this journey, if you're looking at some of these items that are covered here, equipment monitoring, energy monitoring, job tracking, capacity, process disruption, quality and inventory management. If you're looking at any of those things and you want to employ that technology, please do get in touch with us and we'll signpost you to the most relevant funding application to do that. Funding is usually a kind of use it or lose it type scenario. And certainly on this basis, we need to get this funding out the door quickly. So we're really encouraging organizations to come forward with anything in this area. Next slide, please. So the second level of funding is what we call our testbed funding. This is for organizations that have perhaps acquired physical equipment. This could be where organizations have acquired a robotic piece of equipment. It could be where they've invested into significant values into a piece of machinery. If they're not using that machinery to its full output, what we could effectively do is we could help you to use that machinery to help others in the industry to use that tech as well. So if you've acquired a piece of technology that you think is absolutely essential to your part in the sector, and maybe you know where others in the sector could be benefiting from this, we're wanting to speak to you in regards to turning that asset into a network of this virtual assets. These assets are then able to be used up and down the United Kingdom. And from another company's side of things, they're able to come and try before you buy type scenario. They can model what it looks like using a robotic arm to do a certain type of activity. This could be a packaging process, it could be a production process, it could be anything in between. This helps organizations with throughput and certainly is something that we would want companies to come and access. This would then get added into that suite of virtual platform and the demo environments that I talked about. So this helps companies to explore those opportunities and de-risk that technology. Next slide, please. So finally, our maximum and final amount of funding is up to 315,000. This is for pretty large organizations up and down the United Kingdom. It could be a technology provider, it could be otherwise. But again, if you're already speaking to a technology, a skills or a knowledge provider, we would again encourage you to speak to them and share this message to them. What we're aiming to do is we're aiming to create a whole suite of our flagships. We've already invested significant amounts of money into lighthouses, and we've got a very final funding call out there for flagship programs. One thing that's probably worthwhile mentioning at this point is that with all of our digital innovation funds, we expect a return of an investment of 3 to 1. So for every pound that we provide, we expect 3 in return. A lot of that is not expected to come from a cash contribution. It is actually expected to come largely from a in-kind contribution. So again, we would encourage you to engage with that. One of the really exciting things from this is that we've already acquired lots of these lighthouse activities. There's a website directly to access them on our website, which is smdh.uk. What I would encourage you to do is that if any of the offerings from any of those lighthouses are relevant to you, again, that's any of those solutions that we've acquired, the software or the products and the hardware technologies, do let us know, because we'll be able to get you in touch with them and they'll provide a demonstration. And then again, you could access some of this technology free of charge because we've paid for it through our program for you. Next slide. I think that might actually bring it to a conclusion. Perfect, yes. So as I mentioned, smdh.uk is the website. That's where we've got all of our information on there. If you use this QR code, that will send you over to sign up for the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub account. Once you've got an account, any of those 5 platforms that I discussed a little bit earlier, you'll have access to all of them within one really neat single sign-on activity, which means that you get access to the whole kit and accessories. What we'll very quickly do is I'm going to, we'll stop sharing our screen here. And then what we'll do is we'll open the floor for Saleh just to jump in, and then we'll let Saleh share his screen and he'll explain what he's demonstrating to you as he does that. So Saleh, over to you.
Thanks, Adam. Just let me share my screen, you guys. Share. Okay, I hope you have my screen.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the first solution we have as Adam mentioned is energy insight solution. And all this solution, just to tell you that is all developed by SMDH data team. Actually, I'm leading the data team for SMDH, which we have different skills from different organizations, including Energy Systems Catapult, Ulster University, Hartree Center, and also the Data Lab. So this one gives a very good detail of the energy consumption in the company, and if there are different workspaces. We just used half hourly data from the energy supplier, and you can see the detail of the energy consumption for your site. We kind of identified, get the extract the patterns and identify the base load, variable load, and also working load. And if there is abnormally high usage, we can also identify it by looking at the pattern of the usage. This is known as also in energy industry known as phantom load, where we can see some load that there is no explanation for that. So there are potentials to reduce this energy consumption. So for this, we can toggle between energy consumption, energy cost, carbon footprint, estimated CO2 emission, or national emission. And also we can just choose different dates, day, and also if we have different sites or we have submeters, we can go into submeter or look at the different uh, subsystems date energy consumption. In the detail inside, we have again we can toggle between different figures, and our dashboard is updated, and we can choose the range for a week, for a month, for a year, and we can see the total consumption by kilowatt hour cost, and also the total CO2 emission. We have split analysis giving more detail how our energy consumption look like for a working day, and for different weeks, also at the top, like 10 days by the energy consumption, and also split it by months how we are using energy. For example, how our working load is, if there are some abnormally high usage. Also, we have comparison. If we are doing some intervention for reducing the energy consumption, we can choose different period of times, and to see if, for example, here this example shows there were high energy usage, and just doing some interventions is possible to reduce the energy cost, and also later to just keep an eye if it's happening in the different period of the time. And also we for different period of the time, we can look at the weeks of the day, how our energy consumption looks like in weekdays. We have also look at just showing how much energy coming from where, for example, from submeter, from different sites. Also, we have a heat map to show the energy consumption by choosing the different, the meter, and then how it looks like in a week by looking at the energy consumption. And finally, we have some advices that you can just apply for reducing the energy costs. This is going a bit more granular. And also we are working on energy benchmarking as well. So the energy benchmarking is showing how company is performing or consuming energy among their peers in a sector. So another solution, as Adam mentioned, is machine utilization. Our team and IFM or other solution providers can give a current sensor, and with this current sensor, this, you can see the signal. We look at the signal, we identify the patterns, and we can tell companies like you that if a machine is working, idling, and how the energy cost is for this machine. It's just not all machines. We had some use cases to just tailor the solution for uh, food and drink manufacturers, for example, for monitoring their refrigeration system, coupled with a temperature sensor to help them to optimize their refrigeration, and also show them how their refrigeration consume energy. And we have dynamic cost calculation, just based on the figures coming from current sensor. It's possible to put a custom amount for energy price, and you will see the energy price for that period of time. And also we have kind of benchmarking. The benchmarking shows the machine utilization or performance in different days, and if we get operation data about operators, we can also identify or benchmark the different operators in terms of the efficiency. And we have air quality solution. Again, the sensors are provided by our partners, and we can help the companies to identify if they're keeping the environment healthy in terms of the particle matters and CO2, and we can tell them how many percentage of the time in a working shift their CO2 or VOC level goes above the standards. Apologies. And they have this air quality index that they can we can help them to see when it is happening, and if there is any intervention. For example, we help the company to show them that they need to improve their extraction system by adding a robotic arm for example for a welding. And also we can help them to understand in terms of the air particles, for example, if someone has a paint shop or something, that it's really important to keep the PMs low for healthy environment. Okay, it's me, and I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, no, not at all. So I think what I would mention again just there is that all of those solutions that Sally just mentioned are free of charge. We can either provide the sensors if you've not got any of the machine data that we need, so we can provide those free of charge. And then also the overriding analytics that goes with it is something that Sally and his team are there to help support you on. I wouldn't want anybody to get too concerned by looking at those. I appreciate when you look at it, sometimes they're quite full on, some of those images, but what I really would say is that Sally and his team have spent an awful lot of time either building the products and the platforms, but certainly one of the things that we're able to do to wrap around that, and Sally and his team would sit with you and help you to interpret those results as well. So you're not just there to get given the insights and then that's over to you. We very much sit with you and support you on that journey. So again, free of charge to sign up. You could reach out to both Sally and myself via LinkedIn or via our email addresses, which we'll provide to Louisa so she can share with you as well. And we really hope that you've enjoyed listening to what we've had to offer from the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub today. Again, my email's just on screen now, so perfect momentary flip to my email there. So perfect. So please do reach out to me and we'll be able to help.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for all the information that you just shared with us. And thank you, yeah, Adam, and thank you, Sally, for showing us how it works. And I know it can be intimidating for people that are not very used to data to just look at these graphs. But as you said, just having someone there that can help you and just like navigate those resources and actually like walk you through the process of how to interpret that and how to make like real changes and efficient changes is like useful. So I'll just make sure you've reach out to Adam or to Sally or to Marielle there, and hope like people that are watching the recording also can reach out to you, and like it sounds like a great opportunity for businesses, and I hope it reach out a wide variety of food and drink business out there. So thank you so much, both of you, for your presentation.
Most welcome.
No problem.
Thank you.
No worries. So just moving on to the end of it's a perfect timing. Thank you so much. So these are some of the resources I'm going to add there as well. The resources for the data lab and for the different programs that Adam just shared with us, and for the insights and energy insights website as well. More resources there. And so we have a few minutes for Q&A. If there is anyone that would like to ask a question to our speakers or